Hello, I'm Jody Wolf. You're watching Expoz on November 3, 2015, 1:03 a.m. Birmingham. Topic, prophecy. Not much, but a little bit, but I got a lot to tell. Number one, a prophet. A prophet is a person who will give you straight up what the Holy Spirit is giving him. So a prophet does not interpret a vision or a hearing or a visit. They don't interpret them. They give them, and they don't break them up and say, this is my opinion. They give it to you straight the way they got it. That is a prophet. And so back in the last days, get this, in the last days, a little over 2,000 years ago, the book of Hebrew said we are in the last days. And they were speaking of then, 2,000 years ago. What did the last days bring them? Well, the last days brought them a final 33-year period. The birth of Jesus started the last days. And this is the last days of the Old Testament. The new time, the next 2,000 years has yet to come. So that the New Testament's not even mentioned. It's not written yet. So the book of Hebrews said we are in the last days, and that's speaking of Jesus Christ. So John, when he wrote, he said in his writing, this is what we received in the last days. So he did that because we are reading what is for our time in 2015 and 16. He said, where you are now, not only he said we're in the last days, and then he said, but you're in the last hour of the last days. See, John was at the beginning of the last days, the birth of Jesus. And John was after that. Then he wrote that when we received the word, when we got the New Testament, we were in the last days and we're reading it and interpreting it. We are in the final hour. This is what is being said now. So they quizzed, the prophets all quizzed Jesus. Tell us, Master, when are you coming back? What are the signs? And he spoke to them many times about the things that would be here with us. And among those, of course, we do know were the famines, the disasters, the wars, the weather, and the moon dark and the sun darken, and just all kinds of signs. But none of them mentioned the 4 blood moons. None of the signs mentioned the Shemitah. None of them mentioned the harbingers. None of them mentioned the Jubilees. That's our doing there. That's us. So someone was given a sign that he wrote down. But the main event that was to be in the last days, I've not told you yet. I will in just a minute. And so they sat down many, many times and talked about these things. And again, John asked Jesus, when will you return? And he repeated all the same things, except he didn't repeat the blood moons, the Shemitah, the Jubilee, the harbingers. And so what I'm saying is we are seeing those signs, the signs that Jesus talked about, wars, famines, disasters, the weather, and the moon being darkened and the sun being dark. We're seeing that. today. And we're not interpreting that. We're seeing it. And but for an example, the next tetrad, 400 years from now, that's a long way. The next Jubilee is 50 years from now. And of course, we know the Harbinger is next 7 years, or on the 8th. And then that's it, the Jubilee, 50 years away. But can we base our end times on those 4 events? No, we can't. We cannot. And but we can go to and fill in some areas for our benefit to give us a better time of where we are. And one is, remember that the Bible said, only in the end of days will the book of Daniel be understood. God told Daniel, he says, seal these words until the times of the end. Well, now we understand the book of Daniel. And maybe we understand it too well. But with the book of Daniel, we know one of the most important things is there is a 70th week. And the 70th week is something for us. That's the end times. That is perhaps the end hour of the end of days. And so going on through there, let me tell you something else that just came up last week. This is NASA. They said there's a 99% chance of an earthquake hitting LA before 2015 is over. The same man said in a chance of a 6.1 to 6.3 will hit LA within the next 2 to 2.5 years. This man's name is, I'm going to spell it, Dr. Donnellan. Donlan, I don't know, Donnellan. He's the man that said this, and he is from NASA. I don't know where he got it from, but he said it, and they let him say it. And but I want to say something else to you. That's new, by the way, brand new. Did you know that CERN went down again just the other day, last week? CERN has a inside of it somewhere, and I'm assuming, I'm not going by anything that I was told, but I do know there was a shutdown. But a lot of things, like your car, for example, it's got a low fuel shut off, or like the Mustang, when they first came out, the new ones in the late 70s, they had an automatic fuel shut off. If it was hit, it triggered something that would sever the pump from the tank. In other words, it couldn't pump any fuel because of the fires and the Pintos and all that. Anyway, there's also an automatic shut-off built into the collider, and it reached a certain temperature and it shut itself off. They're in the process of getting it back online right now. But did you know that it went down one day after the second earthquake recently? You know, we had 2 earthquakes, just a few days apart? And one of them killed quite a few people. And ironic that the day after that earthquake, the collider shut down. Some people still say the collider, CERN, and HAARP had something to do with creating the earthquake in Japan. They're still blaming that earthquake on our interference. And in all honesty, I wouldn't doubt that a bit. Not a bit in the world. So, where we are right now, and we have to include these things to mark our time for are we in the end days, and that is the return of Israel. That is on the second set of blood moons, and that is 1492 expelled from Spain. Then the next 1949 and 50 blood moons, Israel came home, became a nation. 1967 4 blood moons, Israel won the 6-day war and gained more. Plus they got all of Jerusalem, which was the prize. And then the 4 blood moons that just left, we haven't felt anything, had anything, no hits, no disasters, no crashes. Well, John Shorey, Shorey, said just hang on to your hats. Just like the timing with the blood moons didn't always affect Israel, it did always affect Israel. Just as certain as we're going to be judged because of these things that we have been doing. And the harbingers judged us, and it happened. The Jubilees, it's happened to Israel every time, but ironically, it was tied in with us too. You can hear Jonathan Cahn make those connections. And then the 70th week, how does that put us together? The 70th week of Daniel. The Bible said the generation that's alive that sees Israel, sees the Jews go back home, is the generation that'll see the end of days. That's got to be Daniel's 70th week. And I think we are entering that right now. Right now. If we haven't just recently, we will soon. And I think that's where we come in. I think that's where we're tied in. And John Shorey also said that, I don't know this person, Mena, M-E-N-A, had a vision that she saw, or he saw, a black horse run across a calendar of 4 months. And he said those months are September, October, November, December. He said that twice. He said also he is a mid-trib rapture believer and believes he will be counting down to that mid-trib right now. I am a pre-trib rapture, so I don't believe the countdown has begun yet. But I can say this, and I believe this with all my heart. I didn't read it. I didn't hear it. Nobody told me. I just felt this years ago when Benjamin Netanyahu was reelected, and then again, the contribution that I can make for me, that in my heart, 100%, I feel that he is, Benjamin Netanyahu, is the modern day Moses. He's the man that's going to be there when all hell breaks loose. Jody Wolf Expoz.